Towering above Tomorrowland are the futuristic peaks of Space Mountain. Inside, astronauts experience the thrill of a twisting, speeding journey past the stars and unexplored galaxies, bursting through a cosmic vapor curtain into the deep, dark void of superspace, where time is non-existent and distances are spanned at infinite speeds. I'm RCT3 is Epic, and you're watching Space Mountain Month. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not calling it Space Monthton. Hello, everyone. Welcome aboard my spacecraft, the DL-05. Mission Control sent me up here to check on a few space stations and ports. So, with one of them turning 50 this year, we've got a lot of ground to cover. Alright. Power level at maximum, and cloaking launch coordinates. Next stop. In June of 1959, Walt Disney opened the first ever Disney roller coaster, the Matterhorn Bobsleds, a dual-track aerodynamics roller coaster weaving in and out of a recreation of the famous Matterhorn Mountain in Switzerland. It was a great success at Disneyland, prompting a similar attraction to be brainstormed. Having conquered the Swiss Alps, Walt Disney naturally turned to the one place uncorrupted by capitalism:
Space!
That's right. The next concept he had was titled Space Voyage, and would basically be another Matterhorn, but this time it would have 4 tracks weaving through a building meant to simulate space travel. Unfortunately, Disneyland didn't have the room for this massive attraction, so it was shelved. After the unfortunate passing of Walt Disney in 1966, and the opening of the Florida project in 1971, now called Walt Disney World, they ran into the same issue Disneyland eventually ran into: the lack of thrill rides. A Matterhorn clone was brought up, but eventually it was agreed upon to realize the space voyage concept, since in Florida they have lots of exactly one thing:
Space!
So with that, Space Voyage was worked into a new concept. Now called Space Mountain, the concept was whittled down into 2 roller coasters inside a large conical building designed by John Hench and George McGinnis, with the main portion of the ride simulating a high-speed flight through the cosmic wonderland of
Space!
Since aerodynamics was busy at the time, Disney manufactured most of the track in-house. Adding to the futuristic nature of the ride, this would be the first roller coaster to be entirely controlled by a computer. Finally, on June 15th, 1975, Space Mountain opened to the public. Over the years, sponsorships came and went, changing the attraction slightly, but as of 2005, it's a singular standalone attraction. And in 2009, many of its effects and set dressing had a major overhaul to look more like the other Space Mountains. In recent years, they've added seasonal overlays at certain after-hours events, such as Deep Space Mountain for the Halloween season, where they just pretty much turn the lights off, and Holiday Run, where they flash every light known to mankind and turn the ride into a Christmas rave. So now that we've talked about the history, how's about we take a ride on this 50-year-old classic? This is Walt Disney World's Space Mountain. After walking to the back of Tomorrowland and seeing the iconic white dome on the other side of the railroad tracks, guests enter the cleverly named Starport 75. After passing over a ball pit that Disney won't let you jump into, you enter a long hallway with a strange mirror effect that vaguely looks like space is passing by, and you get to listen to the greatest cue music ever! This hallway is actually cleverly used to go under the railroad that encircles the park. After that tunnel, with some more glowing space imagery and graphics alongside safety spiels, guests enter the loading station. From there, they enter one of two sides, Alpha or Omega. Both tracks are basically identical, with the Alpha side being slightly longer by about 10 feet. Once we get in our bobsled-shaped rocket, we head to a weight check and fall into the second most iconic part of Space Mountain. After the awesome blue flashy tunnel, the rocket goes up a lift, past a fun show scene on a docked spaceship, and down the drop and among the stars you go. This layout is a little more focused on sharp turns and sudden drops than the other ones, but I'm not going to go too much into detail since essentially it would just be turn, drop, helix, drop, turn, etc. Around the dome are projected galaxies, comets made of chocolate chip cookies, and stars whizzing by created by hidden disco balls around the building. While all of this is happening, ever since 2007, riders have been treated to the song Mount Bop by Mike Bressel playing on loop in the mountain, as well as
Stereophonic sound.
Now you may notice I said playing in the mountain. Yeah, unlike later versions of this ride, the vehicles are incapable of having onboard audio due to the track not being able to take the weight that an onboard audio system would entail. But enough about the electro-synthomagnetic musical sounds for now. At the end of the layout, you hit the final brake run in a wormhole and, I guess, gently float back to the unload station? It's kind of weird. You go from flying around in space to still flying, but slower now. You enter the unload station through what I hope isn't supposed to be an airlock, and climb out of your rocket. Congratulations! You've just conquered Space Mountain! Now you get to conquer the exit queue! Remember how you had to go under the railway to get here? Well, the attraction isn't futuristic enough to have teleportation, so you have to traverse that distance again. They used to have a moving walkway that added to the theming, but that was removed in 2018. As for the theming, this section is quite charmingly themed with physical sets depicting travel destinations, cluing into the fact that this ride is actually supposed to be an airport. In the future, we won't use airlines, we use rockets! Take that, Taylor Swift! Anyways, we make it back and into what else but a gift shop.
Foolish earthlings, don't you know all rides must end near the gift shop?
And that was the original, the iconic Space Mountain. It's a little hard to talk about this ride critically. The ride has earned such iconic status for its aesthetics and execution of such a simple concept, so it feels really hard to say anything positive that hasn't already been said by everyone else, or something negative that doesn't feel like you're disgracing a legend. So you can imagine how hard it is to compose a critical analysis of such a classic. The best I can do is offer my opinions. This layout is fantastic. It might even be the second best Space Mountain layout ever made. The fact that you not only get airtime, but a lot of airtime on this coaster, and the darkness really enhances the chaos of taking this layout in such a small vehicle. And if you're lucky enough to get a ride with the trim brakes off, you are in for a special treat. The roughness is somewhat mitigated by the vehicles being very softly padded, however that leads me to what I don't like about it. Yes, it's a classic. Yes, it's beyond iconic, and yes, without it we wouldn't have so many other coasters. But I think it's been thoroughly outclassed at this point. I already mentioned the roughness, which definitely subtracts some points from it, but overall this is a ride that opened in 1975. And you can tell. A lot of the scenery is visually dated, and the worst of these offenders is the audio. I mentioned that the music is played in the mountain instead of on board the rockets. This is for weight reasons, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. But the result of this is that you don't really hear the music until you get to the bottom of the ride. As far as my personal opinions on the music, well, when I said the ride was dated, that definitely includes the soundtrack. It's not bad by any means, but it's not very punchy, and nor does it fit the intensity of the ride, and due to its method of delivery, it can't be synced with the ride properly at all, so wisely they don't even really try. Now that I've spoken ill on one of the most beloved roller coasters in existence, I do want to clear the record and say no, I absolutely do not hate this ride. Far from it. It's one of the most iconic rides for a reason. It doesn't matter how unrealistic or how rough or how dated it is, it's still awesome for one reason: it's Space Mountain. Now, earlier I did say it's been outclassed, and that does beg the question, what outclassed it? Well, for one, but outside of that,
that'll have to wait till next time.
Well, until then, I've been RCT3 is Epic, and thank you for watching the inaugural episode of Space Mountain Month.
Space!